What's going on, YouTube? I'm John, and you're watching Retired Grandpa. Is this the modern Thompson? Well, this right here has to be one of my favorite PCCs to date, and I've shot a few of them, and I've had some positives and some negatives, especially with that one particular FM9 build that I've been working on. But moving on with this, let's get into this because I'm excited about it, and I know a lot of y'all are as well. But before we get into it, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me build this channel, and it really tells the algorithms what you guys want to see. Because without subscribing and without supporting channels like this, it really tells the tube that y'all like to watch unicorns and bunny farts. So please do us a solid, smash that subscribe button, and help grow the 2A community. With that, let's get into it. The CMMG Banshee Mk-10 10mm. This is how I keep this particular weapon system stowed and ready to deploy for home defense. This is a radial delayed blowback operated firearm, and this is set up for home defense. And this is currently loaded and ready to fulfill that role should the unfortunate ever arise. First off, we'll start with the magazine. The Banshee Mk-10 10mm is a Glock pattern magazine fed weapon system. Each Banshee comes with one 30-round magazine from SGM Tactical. It's made in South Korea, and these magazines so far have proved to be reliable and very nice, especially for a relatively low price of $25. Each of these magazines I do have numbered. That's why you see the one here. I just took a Sharpie and wrote that on there. Right now it is loaded with Winchester Defender 180 grain jacket hollow points, and I've conducted a couple of ballistic tests with this particular loading from a handgun and also from this 8-inch barrel. And I've also tried the Buffalo Bore 21 Bravo 180 grain heavy from this, and I really like the way the defenders worked from this 8-inch barrel. So this Mk-10 did not come configured like this. I did switch out the brace that came with it for this SB Tactical SBA5 brace. I really do like the brace, and I have a couple videos about this. But one thing to note is make sure if you do have one of these braces that does not have the polymer detent that interfaces with the buffer tube. If you do, get rid of it. Contact SB Tactical and they'll send you an aluminum detent. Moving forward, this does have a 6-position buffer extension for the brace, and this does have that I think it's a rip feature where on the original brace you could simply pull back on the brace and it'll extend all the way out. I mean, that's a pretty cool feature, but ultimately I did not care for it. Moving forward, you look at the end plate. It's from Magpul, and it does have a QD point for a single point sling for those that want to run one. We look at the charging handle. This is from Gasly Automatics. It's their airborne charging handle, and this is my preferred charging handle for everything AR. We look at the backup iron sights. These are from Troy Industries, and this does have the HK style front sight, and this is my preferred backup iron sights for everything AR. I believe the force required to push these sights down is somewhere around 2,500 pounds, and pretty much this will outlast any one of us that has to face 2,500 pounds of force. For the optic, this is the Aimpoint T1. I bought this years ago when I bought my Mark 18 SBR. I simply just had this in inventory and decided to put it on this Mark 10 build for the time being. It does sit on a LaRue quick detach mount and is very, very nice. I've had this since 2013, so maybe 12 years, and I believe I've changed the battery in this either once or twice. Moving forward to the light is a Cloud Defensive Rain 3.0. This has become one of my preferred lights for everything AR. I just now recently got into the constant on switch. The previous 3.0s had a constant on and a momentary on. I'm pretty much a believer in the constant on, constant off. That if you're going to run it, you're just going to turn it on and run it and then turn it off. Now, if you do need the light and you go to activate the light, and as soon as you activate it or go to activate it, if you don't want to run it, just keep your finger down on the button and the light will not come on. It's once you release the button that the light comes on. For the Picatinny covers, all these rail ladders pretty much are from Magpul, and I do like this. It does help protect the Picatinny rail here, and also it just makes it more comfortable to hold on to. The mount for the light is from Arasaka Defense, and it's an outstanding mount. I do recommend anything from Arasaka. The covers for the M-Block are from Magpul, and these are, I believe this is the Type 2, and you can take a 5.56 cartridge, place it in here, and be able to pop the centerpiece out and then pull the entire panel off. And it's very nice. It's got very nice texturing, and I sweat a lot, especially here in the hot, humid South. And this right here really does a great job from preventing my hands from slipping. And I run these covers on pretty much all my ARs. Now the sling is from Tier 1 Citizen. I believe it's Abner up there in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If you're looking for a nice sling to run on your AR or whatever type of weapon system, I do recommend these. It does have a nice bungee feature that he talks about. It is very simple. You can set it up to how you want it, and then keep in mind that with very little pressure, you can extend it out for an additional reach should you need it. Pretty much I recommend these for everything up to, well, maybe just excluding like your 16-inch style DMR AR that has a low-powered variable optic, bipod, suppressor. When you start getting into heavier firearms, and the only reason I would suggest maybe something else is the webbing. I would prefer to see like maybe a 1-inch or a 1.25 inch wide webbing for those heavier systems. So the weapon is unloaded. We're going to take a look at this linear comp. So with the linear comp, it pushes all the gas and all the pressure forward, and it really pushes all that noise forward. This is really not too bad shooting it outside. I wish I did have an indoor shoot house that I could try it and see. And at some point, I might consider suppressing this, but I'm still on the fence about doing that. The pistol grip here is a BCM Gunfighter Type 3, I believe, or I forget which one, but it's the one that has this palm swell feature here, and I do prefer that. Now with this, it did not fit perfectly out of the box. I did have to take heat to this section of the grip and warm it up, and when I snugged the pistol grip onto the frame, it then allowed for this piece here to move just ever so slightly in order for me to get that nice tight fit up against the lower receiver. This front thingy here is from B5 Weapon Systems, and I don't call it, or I don't consider it, a vertical foregrip. Vertical is 90 degrees perpendicular. This is not 90 degrees, it's less than 90 degrees. I utilize this to put my hand against, that way I can put backward pressure onto it and simply put my thumb over it. And I can even flip up my sight if I need to give myself more space to make it more comfortable. And what this allows me to do is this allows me to add more stability, more control, and that allows me to be able to fire this more accurately and more safely. Now, don't use this as a vertical foregrip, because if you're holding on to something like this and say the firearm's on top, it's going to be harder to maintain control. Your wrist, it's going to be hard to keep your wrist still. I don't care how strong you are. With this, it's simply pushing the firearm back against me, against my cheek or what have you, and or even just allowing it to push it into, or the pistol grip into my hand, and I can kind of push against each other like that so I can maintain control of the weapon system, again, to control where the rounds are going, be more safe, and be more accurate. The number one feature about this PCC that really drove me into the PCC game is this FRT trigger. In my humble opinion, a PCC is only worth its weight if it has some sort of a FRT or super safe type trigger in it. Especially when you're talking about 9mm. This is 10mm, and this system, along with the cartridge, depending on what type of loading that you use, will handle just about anything in North America within reasonable distances. We all know that the 10mm with like a 220 grain hard cast has taken African game at 100 yards from a 5-inch 1911. And you can go on to YouTube and check out Razor Dobbs for videos like that. I do not recommend hard cast for self-defense, as they do penetrate, and we don't need too much penetration, but anything such as a Defender, the Buffalo Bore, and there's plenty other, type defensive duty type ammunition out there that I do recommend for the 10mm. This is not the original rail that came on this firearm. I did have to send this back to CMMG after I bought it, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. What I didn't like about the original rail is it had the scallop feature in it, and I do not like that whatsoever. For me, I like to run backup iron sights. I like to run my pressure pads for any type of lights, night vision, whatever, at the 12 o'clock. And with that scallop here, I did not know of any accessory that filled in that gap there to make this flat in order for me to mount my pressure pads and other things. So when I first received this Banshee, I took it to the range and I was shooting Underwood 165 grain gold dots. And I noticed from this weapon system that the cases were bulged and split. We're not going to talk about that now, but when I opened up the system, I noticed there was a lot of paint or finish missing from inside the weapon system. And here's an example just from the upper receiver of some finish that's missing. Most of what was missing was inside the lower receiver. And also, as it turned out, there was some sort of a triangular looking stone that was down inside the receiver, and behind it, paint was not applied to the receiver. So I did send this in to CMMG. They took care of it. They refinished it, of course, removed the stone, which the stone came out once I realized it was there. And I inquired about a rail, and this is an old model rail that they had laying in the shop, and they were able to get me hooked up. So I do have the original rail that came with this, and while the lines here do not line up perfectly, to me, that's cosmetic. That's not a big deal. The firearm is still very functional, as everybody has seen by now in all the videos. Now I can deal with that. Because of YouTube's policies and guidelines, I'm unable to show how to take this apart, but it's very much like an AR-15. You have your standard takedown pins, you pull this out and the upper comes off. The Banshee does have a very unique way of holding the bolt open on the last round, and it's this feature here. So when the magazine is empty, the follower hits this and it rotates and it pushes up against the bolt stop and causes the bolt to lock open to the rear. So that's a very ingenious way to capture the bolt in the rearward position. See here, I do have the FRT-15L3 that I purchased from Delta Team Tactical some time ago. It has been excellent so far. And talk about the fit. Look at how well it fits in the lower receiver. So absolutely no concern about this pin walking out, even though I did back it out probably close to 2 threads, put some Loctite on it, and very gently put it back in place. Same thing with these two screws here and the two screws on the other side. Put a little bit of Loctite on it just to snug it up and keep it in place. It's very, very smooth. I like it. Like it a lot. I am running the H3 buffer, and it's a standard carbine spring. This is a very well thought out receiver. It's very streamlined. It's very thick. Seems very robust. I have no complaints about it. Except if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, if you're using this in an austere environment, it is possible that you might get some sort of debris or something in here that could potentially cause the magazine release not to work. But I don't think too many of us are going to be taking this in such environments. Moving on to the upper receiver, this is very, very, very smooth. I mean, this is very well broken in. On all the shiny parts that you see, I did apply a little bit of grease. This system is a combination of like your AR-9 type bolt carrier and your AR-15 type bolt carrier. You have a weight back here. It is a full auto bolt carrier. The locking bar on the FRT interacts here. And just like on a full auto M16 bolt carrier, you do have that ramp. And I do have a little bit of grease there. To disassemble this bolt carrier group, you do pull the pin out. The legs on this spread out a little bit, so it is kind of a pain to put it back in. The gas carrier key here obviously is a fake key. It is staked, however, and it does have a cutout for your circular cam pin. And also on the bolt, there's a spring on the bolt tail, and that gives you that radial delayed action. It's pretty ingenious. You have a single point ejector. There's your extractor, and there's no visible damage. There's a lot of wear where you see the finishes come off, but I'm assuming that's par for the course. But everything that's shiny, I put some grease on, and so far really can't complain. Charging handle, I mean, it's a charging handle. Now with the barrel extension, it is cut out large enough for your 10mm cartridge to feed. You can see the cutouts here on the upper receiver from a 5.56 upper. So I'm not sure if they just make one standard upper across their different lines of firearm, and they can put this 10mm extension in, for their barrel. But anyway, but this does have some wear from when the finishes come off. Now where the finish is missing, there's no noticeable gouging in the aluminum. It's just cosmetic wear. Probably the only damage is going to be on this plastic or polymer removable shell deflector. And there's a lot of, and this is kind of chewed up a little bit right here on the upper receiver. And I've seen online where people have complained about, $1,800, $1,900, how much this cost, and that having a lot of wear. That may be caused by different weight buffers, but I would experiment with your own Mark 10 if you have one and just try the different buffers. And I do have a video out there where I show different buffers, but right now I'm happy with the H3. When you go back to assemble the upper receiver and the lower receiver, if you remember, I talked about the spring that's on the bolt tail inside the bolt carrier. There's me pushing against the bolt carrier group. Is pushing the bolt into the barrel extension, but that spring's pushing it back out. So you do have to keep this in mind when you're assembling it. When you go to rotate it down, you'll have to manually make sure that you push that in so it'll close. When I do go to close this upper receiver, push down on that, there is going to be that little bit of a gap. Just going to have to hold pressure down like this and mortar it. trying to apply pressure on the trigger is not going to move the lock bar. And if I close it with the hammer down or in the up position, the fired position, it's not going to close. Well, it's still a little close to this position here, but the lock bar won't move and allow me to close the upper receiver. One other thing I forgot to mention is that the dust cover is polymer, and it does seem to do a pretty good job with keeping the elements out. Of course, it's not waterproof by any stretch of the imagination, but no more than what I do, it works just fine. Well, since the dear Lord has spoken, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If y'all have any other questions about this particular system or anything else, please let me know. If this needs to come off, please let me know. I'm not trying to do anything, But with that, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Please let me know your thoughts down below. Carry everywhere that you can. Carry every day. Stay safe. And we'll see y'all in the next video. Take care.